Welcome back to Invincipod, probably the greatest podcast about the Amazon original series Invincible. My name is James.
I'm Ralph.
And today we're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 2, Here Goes Nothing.
Here Goes Nothing. I like the titles.
Yeah, they're cool. Like, we wondered this, didn't we, if they were going to stick to the format of the graphic novels of naming them after sitcoms, but I think where, obviously, it's a TV format now, it would be a bit too weird, and they'd run out a lot quicker.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't make sense if it was called My Favorite Martian.
No. But speaking of Martians, we do get Alan the Alien.
Right. And they went
great.
and did the mental telepathy thing.
Yeah, the telepathic talking.
Yeah.
I love that. That jumped out to me like a little bit into the fight when Mark brings it up. Because at first it's just like, okay, cool, right, they're having a conversation and they're fighting. But then as soon as Mark there's a little bit of a break in the fight, they're like, wait, how can you hear me? And he's like, well, I'm in your brain, dude. Like, what else are you going to speak? And it's cool because like they're still very expressive in their faces.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like they're deadpan staring at each other. It's like they're emoting. It's cool. It works really well. Right. I like it.
Right. It's how they would animate them, but without moving the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same. It's just the lips aren't moving, essentially. It's cool.
And what's funny is, like, I wondered how they would do that, if they would follow the book and do that whole thing. And it is a little bit jarring, and I can't imagine, like, for people who are new, who haven't read the book, we're probably wondering what is going on. Because it's such a, it has such a unique sort of sound to it. Like, it's not like an echo.
No, it's a weird way of describing it, but it's close. I think the closest thing you could say is sort of an echo, but it's in his head. But I like that there is a unique sound for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird, the fact that that's how we hear Seth Rogen's voice most of the time.
Right.
Is in that sort of slightly distorted tone. But I guess when you've got such a recognizable voice, it makes sense to kind of change it up a little bit.
Right. Speaking of sound design, you mentioned last week, I was talking about how the sound design, it wasn't was probably my least favorite thing, but this episode, just even in the high school, I noticed more background sound.
It sort of had stepped up, right? Yeah. I noticed it as well. The one that I was sort of alluding to last week or last episode is Eve's powers.
Oh, right.
I love that they've got such a unique sound because her powers, like, she just sort of manipulates light and stuff, essentially is the explanation of her powers. We haven't had that yet in the show, like they haven't said it, but that's basically what she's doing. And I love that everything, like from her almost like Iceman style gliding around that she does, and whenever she's putting up a shield or like a barrier, it's got a unique and distinct sound that they're all slightly different, but they're of a type. They're of a same sort of style.
Right. It definitely sounds created as opposed to found. Like, it doesn't sound like they pulled it from a library.
Yeah. This isn't a walrus being played backwards or anything.
Yeah. What do you think of Gillian Jacobs as Adam Eve?
I love it.
Yeah?
I think she's brilliant. She was the one that I was most, not worried about, but I was most curious about because, like, I watched all of Community. I loved her in Community, and then in the Netflix show Love as well, where she's playing it's brilliant, with Paul Rust. Yeah. And she plays a very different character in that, like a real kind of broken person.
Right.
And I was wondering how she would translate to high school. Sort of, she doesn't have a typically young sounding voice, I'd say. Right. Like, she sounds like someone who's, she's probably drank and smoked quite a lot in her life. It's not like a husky voice, but there's a raspiness to it. There's something to it. And so I was wondering how it would translate to like a 17, 18-year-old kid. And I don't know, it works really well. She's got like a bit more of a maturity to her than Mark because she's been doing it a little bit longer. She's a little bit more jaded to it, and she has to put up with Rex's bullshit all the time. And yeah, I really like it. She is a highlight for me.
Yeah, I like her, and this was one of those tough to get past the voice actor. I know her so much. It was a little. I was really struggling, kind of like with Nolan on the last episode, where I'm just like, okay, I know that's J.K. Simmons. I know this is this is Gillian Jacobs. So it was a little tough for me. But then, like, Jason Mantzoukas as Rexplode, like, it was, I mean, it's so him.
It's him.
It's him.
It is him.
And
I feel like it ramps up as the episode progresses into more of his sort of big personality. Like, it starts off and it's okay, but like the more he gets frustrated with Mark in the fight and everything, like he is building. And it's like, okay, right, we're being introduced to him, and it's like, this is who Rex is, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, thinking about him in the comics, I don't know if I would ever hear Jason Mantzoukas, but knowing sort of Rex's personality, I'm like, oh, that's a total fit. And now I just got to kind of get my mind to learn that this is Rexplode. And it's really tough just because I'm such a huge fan. I listen to his podcast, How Did This Get Made, every week. And it's like, I'm so used to that voice. And he's done a ton of voice work. Like I watched Big Mouth and stuff.
Big Mouth, he's excellent in.
And it's one of those things where they kind of just let him be him. So now I just gotta let him be Rexplode. I think you
hired Jason Mantzoukas to be Jason Mantzoukas in everything that he does.
Yeah. And so since for me, Rexplode is such an established character, like it's a little bit, I'm really, like, I love it so much, but it's really hard to be like, this is a character. I'm not just listening to Jason Mantzoukas.
It's in the same way for me that, like, I think Michael Cera was great as Scott Pilgrim, but he's not my Scott Pilgrim, because I love those books so much more, like, even before the movie or anything like that. Right. It's like, I think he's a great adaptation. I think it's solid. It works. I don't know who else I would cast in place of. Right. But it's not my Scott Pilgrim. It's not necessarily my Rexplode. Like, I don't know about you, but I've been reading the books. I've been carrying on reading Invincible since these episodes came out. And I some of the characters, I'm like, oh, I'm hearing this person or this person now. Like, I'm hearing Stephen Yuen when I'm reading Mark Grayson. Right. But yeah, I'm not with Jason Mantzoukas.
I feel like since this timeline is sort of sped up a little bit, and they're making Rex to be a little bit like turning into more of his complete asshole side. Like, I think it's kind of sped up, and so the show kind of feels like a shorthand for the book. And so like, they wanted, like, in the first episode, they wanted Omni-Man or Nolan to feel sort of like something's on his mind a lot sooner. And I feel like they're pushing Rexplode a little bit harder so that everybody knows that
this guy's
he's
an
asshole.
Yeah. But they do allude to his backstory, which I don't know if you read. There was like a little Atom Eve and Rexplode miniseries. I think they did a couple of one-shots or specials throughout the run of Invincible that explained how both of them got their powers and stuff like that. They were a cool little thing. I think they put them out as like a single graphic novel. And they allude to the fact that, like, he never got to go to high school. He never got that sort of... So it was cool, nice little Easter egg, I think, for long-term book readers.
Now, I'm wondering, because I know, like, when I watched... I'm a big fan of Big Mouth. And I know that Jenny Slate's character, who's African-American on the show, got recast. Now, I'm wondering, I'm trying to remember in the book if, and it doesn't really matter, but the skin tone of Rexplode seems to be more like Jason Mantzoukas. It's like they're...
Definitely. Yeah, he's definitely got more of an olive tone to him. I think they've done that with a few characters. Like, I think where they've cast Sandra Oh as Debbie, she definitely looks more Asian American in the show. And because of that, and because of Stephen Yen, he's not just half Viltrumite, half like Caucasian American. He looks like it's a white Viltrumite and a Asian American descent, and then you've got Mark. So, like, definitely, like, they're leaning into it, and obviously Zazie Beetz as Amber is like, has been swapped as well, but that worked. I like it.
Now we see Rexplode without his shirt and helmet, and the look of him, I don't like the man bun. I don't remember that being in the comic.
Again, I think that's like one of those modernizations with the fashion choice. It's like, what would the ultimate douchebag be rocking at the moment?
Right.
And it just would be a top knot.
Right.
Like, it's like, all right, you're a top knot wanker, as we would say over here.
That scene particularly was so jarring as far as hearing Jason Mantzoukas' voice coming out of that body.
Looking ripped, but like, yeah.
Right. And just his hair being like clean shaven and his hair being like so perfectly like coiffed. It's like, okay. The Teen Team Robot.
Yeah.
Zachary Quinto. I feel like it's almost like obvious casting because he's essentially playing Spock, but at the same time, I love it.
It works really well. Like, he is playing it very deadpan, very dry.
Right.
But there is an element of personality in there as well.
I feel like I can, if I were to read the book now, I would hear that voice definitely.
Yeah,
for Robot.
that was one that I connected to, and I was like, yeah, cool, right, that's Robot for me now.
Right.
But I mean, I think we said this when we first saw that he was cast as Robot. We were like, yeah, that works. He's used to doing that kind of thing.
It is like, I don't know. It's so funny reading the comics for so long and being used to seeing Robot designed as sort of a brownish orange rust sort of thing. And I'm used to seeing that character, but to see him in live action was really weird. When I'm watching the show, I feel like I'm also trying to watch it through the eyes of someone who's experiencing Invincible for the first time. And so I feel like Robot is such a weird design.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we see some stuff in the comics where he sort of kind of gets disassembled and puts himself back together. So I'll be interested to see how the design works if they do any of that going forward. Right.
But I do like that it's stuck to the comic, but it's such an interesting design because it's that brown sort of rust orange color.
Yeah.
And that sort of his face always reminded me, I don't know if you know the puppet. There's a lady who had a puppet called Madam.
I don't know.
It's this little old lady. It was like a dude and an old lady, and it reminds me of that. Like, the mouth and the head is such a unique shape. It doesn't look like a robot shape. It definitely is a unique.
Okay. It's always been very unique. I can't remember what it reminds me of, but when I see it does sort of, it reminds me of something, but it's never anything in particular.
Yeah.
Which I guess is the sign of a good design. Sort of, it evokes something, but I can't place what.
Yeah. But yeah, Zachary Quinto, I mean, he sounds like Spock, but he's so perfect.
Character-wise, like, Robot has the moment where I think it's during it's either the second or the third invasion, where he's just like, right, well, I've done the math and we can't win this. I think it's the third one where he's like, we can't win this. I guess nuclear option then. Let's get as many people out as we can. And they're like, everyone else are the ones who have to sort of be a bit more human about it and be like, no, we're not giving up.
What's great about his performance is he still has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And has like somewhat witty retorts, but he still has that monotone voice.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. It comes off as sarcastic a little bit, but I love it.
Yeah. It works. I mean, it's what you'd want from a sentient robot.
Right.
It works nicely.
Another new character we get this week is Cecil.
Yes, Cecil and Donald. So, I mean, the two hand in hand. Earlier than we do in the books, it's fine. It works. Like, as we said, like last time, they've shuffled some plot points around. So introducing Cecil here is good. It makes sense. He's familiar with Nolan and Debbie as well, which is interesting. That's a nice change. They've definitely interacted in the past.
Right.
The teleportation doesn't seem to be as new or an expensive thing as it was in the book. There's a joke in the comics where every time Cecil teleports, it costs like US taxpayers like $5 million or something.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I know. I only use it for like emergencies. And then every third panel, he's teleporting somewhere.
I love Walton Goggins. He's great. And he doesn't like. What's great is it doesn't sound like him For some reason, for me, it doesn't sound like him until he gets sort of riled up a bit. Then I can hear it.
I think that's just Walton Goggins in general, though. He is a chameleon. He's one of those those ultimate character actors where you can slot him into anything and he works.
Yeah. And I was afraid his voice was going to sound too young when I heard he was playing Cecil. I was like, oh man, he's going to sound too young. He sound perfect.
I don't know why. I always had more of a Christopher Lloyd type in my head when I used to read Cecil. But I love what they're going with now, and I think it works better than Christopher Lloyd.
I always had more of a Clint Eastwood sort of vibe.
Okay. Yeah. Sort of just a grizzled.
Yeah.
I can see that. And I don't think we ever get an explanation to like his facial scarring and everything, but you know, because of that, like the dude's seen some shit.
Yeah.
As opposed to Donald, who is like he's your stereotypical suit who he's every time Damien Darkblood shows up, he's like, oh shit, like he's nervous about it, or like he's taken by surprise.
I like the detail of the cold breath.
Yes, it's a nice
like every time Damien
visual, like, oh okay, he's here.
And then Damien Darkblood in this feels more like Hellboy.
Yeah, more Hellboy, less Rorschach.
Yeah. Right, and the design is even different too.
Yeah, he's a bit chunkier. Like he doesn't have the purple pants.
So instead of a red and white face, he's got the red face but with white hair.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know if we've seen him without his head, without his hat on, but like it definitely looks like hair, or like at least like a skull cap of white as opposed to the face.
And Cecil mentions his horns, so we can only assume there's horns under the hat.
It's definitely more, and they're leaning into his name of being like a demon, and it's like he'll send him back to hell.
Yeah.
And we got like one distinct Herm, but like not the leaning into Rorschach Herm at the end of every phrase.
I love that he did the flashback of the Guardians being killed. Those flashbacks felt more like the original comic book panels.
Yes.
Where you kind of see a shadow in the dark. You don't really see who it is.
Which is, that's sort of how it's revealed in the comics, is the fact that it's clues it's sort of a Batman detective mode thing, like from the Arkham games or something like that. It's not how we actually saw it at the end of episode 1. We got to see a little bit more of Amber this week, and I really liked what they're doing with her. I think she's I think one of the most changed characters from the comic books, and I am all in favor. I think she's a vast improvement. In the books, like she's definitely played as just sort of the one note. She's the one person in Mark's life who doesn't know his secret, and he's trying to keep it from her, and it causes some relationship issues where he's going off to be a hero and leaving her. It's the typical sort of Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker relationship.
Right.
But like she's played out here with a lot more agency. She's a lot more closer to Van in Atlanta, her Zazie Beetz character of Van, where it's like, no, she'll give as good as she gets, and like she'll take what she wants. Like she sends Todd to Mark to like give him her number, not instead of like coyly asking like, oh, do you like me? Do you want my number? It's like I like you. Here's my number.
Yeah.
It's good. It's really good. It fits the character better. It's just an improvement all round, I think.
Yeah. And it feels like the sort of Todd feels more diffused, and it seems like we're kind of wrapping up his bully storyline almost. Like there's still room there, but it's one of those things where
it's less of a trope. It's more modernized high school. It's like it's 2021, where it's like the jockish bully isn't as big of a threat anymore.
Right.
Like it's just like a whatever, dude. Yeah, okay, you can throw a punch, but I've just proven to you that I can take anything you can throw.
Right.
And so what else can you do? There's nothing that you can do to me to harm me. It's good.
And I like the way that Amber makes him apologize.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
what do we think those photos are? Like, what are the photos that she's got on him? What's the dirt?
I could see him sending her dick pics.
Oh,
yeah. I could see that happening.
He's absolutely a dick pic sender.
So, that's probably it. Knowing Kirkman, that's probably it.
I noticed like all of the kids in the school, like as soon as he approaches Mark, like it's not the same guy who had his phone in the background of their first fight, but like they all pull out their phones and they all sort of are like pointing it towards it. They're all ready to film. Like it's I don't know, it's what would happen this day and age.
Probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode is when Mark approaches Eve at school the next day, and then thanks her, and then she realizes that
it's you.
He's invincible. Yeah.
We get their conversation like up in the stands where they're sort of talking about, oh, okay, cool. So you're Atom Eve, I'm invincible, and she realizes, oh, you're new at this.
Yeah.
And it's during that where he's like, I never even recognized you, and I follow you guys on Instagram and everything. And she's like, yeah, no one recognizes us. Like, hell, my name is me. Like, she doesn't try and hide too much, but people just don't expect it, so they don't see it. And that's sort of similar to how can Mark and Nolan just be like hovering not too far above their house when they're doing their training? It's like people don't look up.
Yeah.
Like people they're not used to looking up to see this stuff.
Yeah.
So they just don't see it.
Yeah, that's something that's
blissful ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like this in the show they're on top of the roof of the school. Yeah, I really like the team. Who's playing Dupli-Kate?
Dupli-Kate.
I haven't mentioned Dupli-Kate, but Dupli-Kate's
Melise. I don't know Melise from anything. What has she been in? Okay, she was in The Flash, Shannara Chronicles, Casual. Okay. She's done some TV work. Nothing that I've seen too much of.
I like how disposable her duplicate bodies are, and I feel like the book didn't even do that, where she would multiply and that body would just get trashed and split into like guts, and then it didn't matter, the next one pops up
as long as there's more. Like, I mean, I think in the show we sort of tend to be seeing like 3 at a time.
Yeah, I think they do 3.
Whereas in the books, like we do see, sometimes dozens of them, but it makes sense. You can just track 3 easier. You can see what each of them are doing.
I'm sure it's easier on the animators.
I was going to say it's probably a lot easier on the animators.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very grateful.
But yeah, that was very surprising. When the Flaxons come, it's just like she just keeps getting mowed down. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool new take. Because I don't know. I really don't remember ever seeing any of her
not that I can. I mean, I'm sure it happened at some point. But like, nothing that stands out.
Yeah.
The Flaxons. So we get like 3 waves of this invasion.
It was hilarious. I love the sort of running gag of...
It's like every other day they're back again.
Right.
In our time, but for them it's like months or years or whatever. Right. Like they've developed new technologies every time to keep progressing.
And I love Robot being able to deduce that. Like to figure out what's going on.
His introduction when they first get to the fight, he's like basically issuing orders. He's like, right, in 2.5 seconds there's going to be 3 tanks coming out of over here. Eve, you go deal with that. Rex, you go deal with this. And he's like, yeah, it's obvious, it's right in front of us, we don't need you to be doing this, and Kate's already on it, sort of thing.
Right.
It's like sometimes his deducing is really helpful, but other times it's like punch stuff. Okay, got it.
Yeah, the Flaxon invasions, they just crack me up because they just want to invade Earth, and they can't get it right. They don't. Their plan isn't solid. They haven't done the research, and the first time they show up, they just die.
It's such, like, I mean, in the books and in the show, it's like it's such a sort of a War of the Worlds situation, but even quicker, even faster. It's just like they get here and they're like, oh shit, we have nothing on this planet, like. But instead of giving up and going, oh, this isn't the place for us, we can't survive here, they're determined at this point. It's like
create the technology
coming back. Yeah.
So they create the technology so that they can be in our time stream.
Yeah.
Robot figures it out immediately, and they end up dispatching everybody. Hilarious. Then they try it a 3rd time.
Yeah.
Which is
the 3rd time, it definitely just felt like they felt they needed to out of spite.
Right. Right, because you have the leader with the mangled eye So that's kind of the
he gets the cape from the second and third one, doesn't he?
Yeah, he definitely has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. Do we see? So at the end of the third invasion, Nolan is out at the hospital now, and he saves the day. He saves Mark,
right?
And he takes that leader and tackles him through the portal. Mark goes home. He's worried. Debbie's like, "It's fine. He's gone through an alien portal. He'll be back."
Right.
In the books, that he's gone for a couple of weeks, isn't he? I think
so. Yeah.
At least that is in that time that Mark has to step up. Like that's when he meets Alan, is when Nolan's away.
Right.
Whereas in this, like by the time Mark and Debbie are done with their conversation, like Nolan's still back for dinner. But
yeah,
in the Flaxen time, like he's grown a beard, he's been there for a while, he's messed up their entire planet and civilization, it looks like, and we see that sort of that dark side of Nolan come out again.
My favorite line is when he's in the Flaxen territory and he says the Earth's not here for you to invade, is that?
I mean, there's an emphasis in what he says. It's like Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Yeah,
but yours to.
Yeah, yeah. For those of you that, I mean, we the comic book readers know what's going on, and I mean, I hope we're not spoiling too much for you guys, but that's a big line.
It is. It will definitely. Yeah, I think almost by saying that it's a big line could lead you in a thought process, but at this point you've seen that Nolan has a dark side. Right.
It's fun because it's like, I know they're writing this series based on the comic, and so they can just foreshadow the shit out of everything.
Yeah, and they're doing it, and like,
yeah,
it's not that thing where you're sort of your work. That's the great thing about the streaming services ordering like seasons at a time, because you can write for the season. You don't need to write episodically.
Right. And I wonder,
you know how your season's going to wrap up. You know where it's going.
Knowing Kirkman, do you think he would pull the rug out from under the comic book fan
and subvert it a little bit?
Yeah.
I think with some things maybe, but that is so integral to the entire plot of the show. To the series, like that is that's like the defining thing. This unnamed thing we keep on talking about. Well, I mean, I think we're gonna get there. I think we're gonna get there.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the end of the season at this point. Like the way that we're going, I think we're gonna get there sooner.
Right, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with, and like from stuff that like I'm remembering that we saw in that first trailer. I've not gone back and watched it intentionally, but there's a couple of things that I remember from it that I'm like, stuff is going to start playing out differently. Like there might be scenes.
Yeah.
Like the Alan fight was the scene itself was like beat for beat the same as the comics, but like its placement is slightly different, and so because of that, context is slightly different.
Right.
So I think we're going to get similar things where. Like we'll be introduced to characters. Like we met Titan in episode 1 of this show. Like that's when Mark is in his sort of proto costume. The villain that he punches is a guy named Titan. I'm reading the books, and it's around like issue 19 or 20. Titan has a plot point, and it triggered a memory, and I was like, oh yeah, no, Titan becomes quite a major player for at least a while, and. It's an introduction to another character that we've seen in the trailer, so it's like I think they're going to do that point. So we might get up through like I don't know, that would be what 6 or so trades worth of books. In this first season, which is cool.
And IMDb a long time ago had someone cast as Oliver. Oliver?
Yes. That person also played Matt. And that brings us back. Matt is the son of John Hamm's character. So going right back to the start of this episode, we get back to it's John Hamm, Steve. There you go, Steve, and his stepson Matt. They're in London. They're at Buckingham Palace, looking at all of its windows. And the Burger Mart trash bag comes back.
Yeah.
What do you think? We've been looking forward to this.
Pretty quick. Like I didn't know. Well, we were watching it. My wife was so excited to see John Hamm again, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I hope it's at the beginning of every episode." But
That's exactly what I said.
But I don't know if it is. I haven't seen 3. You've seen 3, so you know. But I feel like I like the trash bag more in this than I did the comic. It just landing in London in front of someone random, like
Yeah, it
like
was
a guy
like
in
it
an
was
alley.
at night. It confused someone more than it.
I always wanted it to be like a major sort of event when it came back down, and
Yeah.
this is better.
Yeah,
Once again,
I mean, it's in an iconic place. It's not just like I think it was down an alleyway by Big Ben, if I remember rightly.
right.
So it's like something that would be recognizable. But I think probably unless you have someone talking about it, Big Ben is probably more recognizable to international viewers than Buckingham
Right.
Palace.
It was always one of those things where I was kind of hoping it was like, I think I mentioned this before, Earthworm Jim. In the very first level, you shoot a refrigerator. It lands on a pole that launches a cow up into space.
Yeah.
And then at the very, very end of the game, when you defeat the boss, when you're about to defeat the boss, the cow lands on the boss and kills the boss.
Yes.
So I always wanted the trash bag to be that, like something where like
it comes back in the middle of a fight or something.
Like this is it. This is the end of Mark, and Mark's about to get destroyed by a bad guy.
And his trash bag saves
right. The amount of ketchup that flies out of the bag is hilarious because I mean at first you don't know what it is. It just kind of pops in and all of a sudden everybody's covered in red. And then you see the BM. You see the BM box, the Burger Mart box.
Yeah. And Matt recognizes it. It's not like what's Burger Mart? It's like, oh wow, I didn't know they had Burger Marts here.
They don't.
No, they don't. It'd be like an In-N-Out package, like landing in Southampton or something.
Oh my god! A couple years ago, somebody in New York found a fresh In-N-Out burger on the ground, like on the sidewalk.
How did someone
I don't know if they ever figured it out, but I'm sure you can Google it. It was just because In-N-Out, I think the farthest east In-N-Out goes is Las Vegas.
They've got some in Texas.
Do they? But
I know there's definitely at least one in Austin. Okay. I don't know if Houston's got any.
But they found one on the streets of New York.
One in Texas.
New York City. It was like fresh.
Wow, weird.
Yeah,
super weird. I like there's an added element that is unique to the show that I really like. When Mark is it's during the first or second invasion, Mark saves a civilian and takes her to the Pentagon hospital that Nolan's in.
Right.
And we catch up with her later on, and I thought it was really cool because it raises the stakes that it's like he saves people. He wants to save everyone, but he can't. Like people die. Right. I think they say something like 300 odd people died in that first wave or second wave of the invasion. And then when Nolan's getting out of the hospital, he's like, this is the job. We try and save as many as we can, but we can't save everyone. For a 17-year-old kid who's sort of just starting out his career, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Right. And
I like it. It's sort of it weirdly humanizes and grounds the story a little bit more. It's like, we see them getting blown apart, but when you see someone get rescued, you think they're safe, they're saved, but not necessarily. There's still death and injury.
Yeah, I think does Eve bring it up about thinking about the people you save as opposed to people that you don't?
Yes, I think so. I think it might be Eve. That sounds like a very Eve line.
Yeah. Her talking about just kind of coping and throwing up on your first, mission or whatever. And just, her being able to guide him is kind of nice. It's, because the first episode we talked about Nolan's influence on Mark and Mark's life and becoming a superhero. You have, Debbie, who sort of teaches him just how to be himself and sort of just be the human side of him. And then now you have Eve and the teen team sort of giving him the day-to-day ins and outs of the actual job itself. Obviously he's going to listen to Eve a little bit more than Rex.
I mean, that's probably wise.
And then, Robot's a little bit too cold. I love Robot. I love Robot,
Yeah,
Robot so
there
much.
isn't really much of a dynamic between Mark and Robot yet. Like they seem they're closer friends, I think, in the books. I don't know if that's. I suppose him and Eve are always going to be the closest friendship because they go to school together and everything. But Robot and Mark, they develop quite a good friendship.
Yeah, and Robot's sort of his storyline in the comics mostly revolves around Monster Girl, which is later.
Yeah, she joins later. I mean, she doesn't join the Teen Team. She joins the New Guardians, doesn't she?
Right.
Which, now that at the end we see that the Guardians are dead, like it's become public knowledge that they are gone. So hopefully we will see the new Guardians of the Globe formed soon.
Do you know this already? Is it in 3?
Maybe.
Yeah, as soon as we're done. Well, no, I got to wait till tonight. Yeah, I got to watch it tonight. Cool. Not that anybody knows what day it is that we're recording.
No, I mean, it's 2021. Time is irrelevant.
Right. But I am very excited to watch episode 3. I can't say enough about the show. The shuffling around is fine.
It works. I think it plays better for the format of TV. Like not everything, like it's just different style of storytelling, isn't it? It just works better.
Does it feel like they're trying to get as much of Invincible, the comics, into these 8 episodes, thinking that they're not going to get a season 2?
Or at least enough that will get people hooked and wanting, like enough eyes on it to get the numbers that they might need to get a season 2.
Right.
To incentivize Amazon or whoever, to essentially commit to more, like at season 2. At the rate that they're going, it feels like they could probably do the majority of the season in 3 or 4 seasons if they wanted.
Right.
I think 4 would be a good number.
Yeah, I think the way they're doing it this season, I feel like they said, okay, we have 8 hours or 8 episodes, and what do we want to do in those 8 episodes? And they said the first 3 trades.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we can just get through that story, it'll be satisfying and great. Then if you go to season 2, I would say Invincible War.
That'd be cool. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff
to that.
There's a lot of stuff in between where it's it was a monthly superhero comic book, so it just came out and there was B plots, there was a lot of side villains and stuff like that, where it's you could hit the major points. If they wanted to trim it down and hit just the major points, I don't think you'd lose too much, really.
Right. I feel like with this season, the very first plot point in the comics is the human bombs at Mark's school. At the
school, yeah. So they skip completely.
Yeah, which they skip completely. So it's it's like they took the first 3 trades, and granted, I only watched the first 2 episodes. I feel like they grabbed the first 3 trades and took every plot point.
Yeah.
And then was like, okay, which ones do we need to tell a story? And
which ones are integral to the Yeah.
And then sort of mix them around to fit the timing of these 8 episodes, and then trimmed out,
I think it's also interesting that in those early issues, the book wasn't selling massively well, and Kirkman was writing it to try and just survive for the next 3 issues. Whenever he was writing, he was like, I just want to get the next few issues. I want to get the next few issues. It wasn't a done deal that he was going to get to write 148 issues of this thing. And so he was teasing everything. And the same was with Walking Dead, where he teased there was aliens coming in issue 6 or something.
One of the things that I think makes the book so enjoyable and so easily to just blast through a bunch is it felt like he would have to end every single issue with the cliffhanger.
Yeah. Making you come back next month.
Yeah. And it totally worked, because if anyone who's read Invincible, it's a real easy read. If you have the floppies,
blasted
you
through
just
it so much.
blast through them so fast. That's why I stopped getting the floppies and was getting the trades, and that's why I just went to digital. I was like, I don't have room. I'm just gonna start buying all these up, and I'm gonna have no room.
Well, I mean, even that, like, I'm reading the compendiums digitally, and like I'm just going through them, and I'm like, if they didn't have like a break page in between where the issues were, I'd be just going through the whole thing, and things like 900 odd pages, and I'm just like, I'd be tearing through it and not even realizing that it's going from one issue to the next.
When the quarantine started, I was like on issue like 105 or something, and I'm like, I need to finish reading Invincible, and I would read at least 8 issues a night before bed.
That's what I've been doing at the moment. Like I'm doing it
like what, a half hour, 45 minutes, just blasting through it. Yeah. It's so easy to read. And
it's not that they're super sparse on dialogue or anything like that. Like he's wordy when he needs to be wordy, but it's
you know what?
He speaks about it.
His writing, his dialogue is like normal people. Like
it's like, very conversational.
Like Grant Morrison just finished his run on Green Lantern. It would take me like a half hour to read one issue because I don't know what the hell he's saying. Like no one speaks like this. When you read Invincible, Ryan Ottley's art is so concise, and it's not super dense and super stylized. It's like very, very clean
you just
art.
Absorb it.
Yeah. And the dialogue just feels like regular people talking. So it's like, I equate it to like, I really like the show The Orville.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't get into Star Trek. But I think it's because in The Orville, people talk like people.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to follow the situation and what's going on instead of having to sort through sci-fi talk to decipher what everyone's saying. I feel like it's
less technobabble. It's just more conversational. It's like you and I having a conversation.
Right. So the book speeds along pretty quick, and I feel like for them to do this show in 8 episodes, it's probably really easy to sort of pick out some of that.
Definitely. And I also think that like it's been a long time now. I'm sure that Kirkman is going back and just going, what do I wish I could have done better? Like he's a lot more experienced now. The dude has written a lot more comics. He's worked on TV. He knows how the format of TV works a lot better. What works, what doesn't work. So he can make those decisions, or at least be involved in making of those decisions. Right. So that we're not getting slumps. Everything is just, it's a banger. It's all just working so well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, but so far, so good. Like, I've got no complaints.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he has to do something pretty drastic.
So, yeah. I mean, they really have to go out of their way to mess this thing up at this point.
Like, I fell off after the first season of Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I couldn't
I think I lasted a bit longer, but like I was
so into the books, and
we've got a similar thing with The Walking Dead. Like it was a weird thing that you and I both discovered that like we dropped off at the books at almost exactly the same point.
Right, I got through 11 trades, maybe 12.
Yeah, I think that was around the same spot.
It was around the time I believe the show started, and it wasn't for me. I know it's a beloved show. For me, it just didn't have the same feel as the book, and I wasn't into it. Whereas this show has the same spirit of the book, even though stuff has changed. So,
I mean, you and I are also like, I remember when The Walking Dead was at its peak, both the comics and the show, or when the show was bubbling. Like the comics was like the biggest thing in comics, and we knew that there was a show coming. But I feel like you and I and a couple of other people, we were the outliers, being like, yeah, but you know, what about this other ongoing Kirkman book that is actually really, really good and the superior ongoing Kirkman?
I used to use Walking Dead to sell Invincible.
Yeah,
I used to tell people, I say, hey, if you like Walking Dead, and if you like Walking Dead and superheroes, this is the dude that did Walking Dead, and
I'd use Walking Dead to sell Invincible to people that didn't like superheroes.
Right.
They'd be coming in to pick up like their Vertigo books, like Y and stuff like that. And if they were picking up Walking Dead, I'd be like, "Have you read Invincible?" And they were like, "Yeah, I don't really like superheroes." I was like, "Trust me, it is straight up a superhero book, but you will like it. If you like Kirkman's storytelling, it's all right there.
I used to tell people this is like the most fun superhero book, but what's great about it, it doesn't have 80 years of history.
Yes.
Like you can, like when I was working there, you can jump in on the ground floor and we're only up to episode or issue like 60.
Yeah, like I'm sure you got it as well, but you'd get people that are like, they're just trying to get into comics, and that's great. Like, please, anyone, if you can use the show to get people reading comics, like God knows the industry always needs more of you, more eyes on it. But like, you'd get people that would come into a comic book shop and just be like, yeah, cool. So I want to start reading X-Men from the start. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you really don't.
It's impossible.
Like, yeah, you don't want to do that. Start from this new jumping on point, great, but like, don't go back to the start and read everything because you'll just burn out so quickly.
I read one of the first comic books I ever read was Green Lantern #1 from 1990. Okay, it's like 12, 13 years old.
So that would have been Kyle?
No, it was still Hal.
Oh, okay.
But it's when he first had like the white streaks in his hair. Like,
right. Okay.
Kyle came at issue 50 of that series.
Okay, yeah.
So since then, I've been reading Green Lantern, and I still haven't caught up on like Silver Age. Like there's just so many, and I love the character, and it's like almost impossible.
I don't feel like you're missing out.
There's a few sort of ancillary Invincible titles, like Guardians of the Globe or Guarding the Globe.
Capes Inc.
Yeah,
Tech Jacket,
Science Dog, any sort of like. There's like you mentioned the Adam Eve like one shots and all those things, but for the most part, you only just need to read the main Invincible. You don't have to read those other things.
Definitely, I think the only one that had a genuine crossover where it was like the story went from one to the other and then back was a 1 or 2 issue arc with Astounding Wolfman.
Right.
Where the plot jumped from one book to the other book, but you could skip it. Like if you didn't read it, you're not gonna miss out.
Right.
Like it's a one story thing, and then you get the resolution of it.
Yeah, it's the easiest read.
It really is
the easiest read.
And the show, I feel like, to bring it right back to the show, like it's fit in that same category. Yeah. Like it just flows. Like it's a 45-50 minute episode of an animated series, but it plays out fast. Like you don't feel like it's dragging ever.
No. I love it.
I love it too.
I'm excited to watch episode 3.
Two episodes in. We've got another one that will be out. I mean, we're going to record the podcast that will be out on Friday. Yep. Right in time for episode 4 to drop.
Which will be, our episode will be out on Monday. And from here on out, it should be Mondays.
Yeah, so you've been treated to like every other or every third day you're getting a new episode of us. But yeah, going from Monday, it'll be weekly until the season's over. Cool. Well, for a couple of days, I'm James.
I'm Ralph. Follow us at Invincipod.com. That will give you links to everything. I've been propagating the site with different podcatchers. Spotify should be up soon. Stitcher's up. All the Last FM, all that stuff is up. Yeah. If for some reason you're hearing us, not on the podcatcher of your choice, let us know and we'll get it up there too.
Absolutely. If you're sort of supporting the show by listening to us somewhere else that you don't normally, just let us know. We're happy to accommodate.
Right.
Yeah. Until next time, keep watching the sky.
Yeah. Bye.